the NFL draft nearly 4 weeks out, a month away, I think it's a perfect time for another 2022 NFL mock draft. And for this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Pro Football Focus's draft simulator. Last time I used the NFL draft data mock draft database, which I still think is the best one, but I just wanted to give a different one. And so that's what we're going to do. That's how I'm going to present my mock in this video. So let's go ahead and get started. As I said, the 2022 NFL draft is a month away, and we've had some trades. We've had a lot of stuff go on, and so I thought it was a perfect time to do another mock draft, and that's what I'm going to go ahead and do here. I don't want to waste too much time. Let's go ahead and get started. And we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, a lot of speculation and a lot of rumor out there is that this is Aiden Hutchinson is going to be the pick, and he is, at this point, my number one rated player in this class. The Jaguars could use another pass rusher opposite of Josh Allen to go along with Levon Chason as well, and I don't know if they're going to go that way. I actually have Evan Neal being the first pick for the Jaguars, and my reasoning is they've got to protect Trevor Lawrence. You've got, and yes, they've made some moves. They franchised Cam Robinson. They signed Brandon Scherff, but I don't think those moves prevent them from taking an offensive, a guy like Evan Neal right here, because they still have a need at left guard. Cam Robinson is still on a 1-year franchise tag. He hasn't been signed long term. There's no guarantee that he's still going to be on their roster. There's no guarantee that he's going to be there long term. Why not build up this offensive line to protect Trevor Lawrence? And a guy like Evan Neal, who has played guard in his career at Alabama, can slide in at left guard next to Cam Robinson, learn the NFL, get his feet wet, and then once Cam Robinson's 1-year franchise tag is up, Evan Neal slides over to left tackle, and you're good to go. Now you've got Evan Neal at the left side, you got Walker Little on the right, you've got Brandon Scherff at the right guard, and your offensive line is that much better to protect Trevor Lawrence. This if Aiden Hutchinson isn't going number 1, he is definitely going number 2 to the Detroit Lions. This Aiden Hutchinson, I think, is the Lions' dream scenario. I think having him being a Michigan guy is irregardless, I think. But he just fits the Dan Campbell type of player, that hard-nosed, hairs on fire type of guy. It just so happens he played at Michigan from that area, and I just think it's a no-brainer. They need pass rushers. He's available. He's probably the best player in the draft. We'll go there. Now for the Texans. I like how they have here. The Texans are a team that has needs at every position, really. They may have their quarterback in the future, but they could use a receiver. They could use offensive line help. They could use pass rushers. They could use a safety. They could use a corner. So they kind of have it all out there. But with Lovie Smith as their head coach, I think they want to build up this defense. And that's why I have them going with Kayvon Thibodeaux with that third pick. Thibodeaux is a guy is kind of getting dragged through the mud right now, and I think he is a lot better than people are giving him credit for. He's not this elite generational type player that maybe a lot of people thought he was going to be, but he is a tremendous player, a tremendous pass rusher, and I think even with the Trayvon Walker hype and potential to be the number 1 pick, I still think a team like the Texans need a ready-made pass rusher, and I think that's why Kayvon Thibodeaux is going to be that pick right there. Speaking of Trayvon Walker, I think he's the pick here of the New York Jets, their first round pick of the draft. I look at this team and they could use some more pass rushers. Robert Saleh had his best success in San Francisco with multiple pass rushers. Carl Lawson's coming back. They added Shaq Lawson. Bring in Trayvon Walker. He's a guy I think has positional flexibility. I think he could be a good 5 technique in Robert Saleh's 4-3 under defense. I think they could slide him out to the Leo if they need be. He can rush from the interior if he has to. And I think that versatility is something that Saleh will like. And with him being available, I think at this point it's a no-brainer. Now that leads us to the New York Giants, their first pick of the first round. And I think they go offensive line, and that pick is Ikem Ekwonu. The Giants are another team that needs to protect. Their offensive line has not been good the last several years. Andrew Thomas, I think, is starting to develop into that guy that they thought they were getting when he was the 4th overall pick. They could use help. So Ekwonu is a guy that's played left tackle. I think he's probably can be an all-pro left or offensive guard. So maybe they slide him into guard. Maybe he plays at right tackle initially. Regardless of it, I think the Giants, to get a guy like Ekwonu, who's one of the 5 best players in this draft, at an area of need is a no-brainer. Now, the Panthers are an interesting team because they've talked a lot about quarterbacks, but is that a smokescreen? Could they be going somewhere else? I don't think so. I'm going to have them going quarterback, but I don't think it's the quarterback that most people assume. I think they're going with, a lot of people assume it'd be Malik Willis. I am going Kenny Pickett. And if we think of, when I think about the Panthers, and the reason why they take Kenny Pickett is this is a coaching staff that has to win right away. They have to win. And Malik Willis has the highest ceiling of any quarterback in this class. That being said, he's a major project, and he's not going to be ready to go year one. And this coaching staff needs to win to keep their jobs. So that's why I think Kenny Pickett is the most NFL ready out of the two. He's a good distributor. They've got some weapons. Just get him out there, get him distributing that ball, and they can have some success. And let's not also forget, Matt Rule is all about familiarity with players. Look at how many Temple players he signed in free agency. Look at how many Baylor players he's brought in. Maybe not high picks, but he's brought in a bunch of Baylor players. Kenny Pickett, at one point, was committed to Temple under Matt Rule before Pitt came in and offered. So I think that is going to play a lot into it. I think some people are brushing that off. I think that's a lot bigger deal than people are thinking. All right, so then we go back to the Giants, and I think they go cornerback, and with Ahmad Sauce Gardner. With the Giants bringing in Wink Martindale as their defensive coordinator, they're going to be doing a lot of blitzing, a lot of man coverage. They need cover corners. And a guy like Ahmad Gardner is viewed as the top corner in this draft, a physical press man corner, and that's a perfect fit for what Martindale wants to do with this defense. I wouldn't be shocked if they took him at pick 5. I wouldn't be shocked if he went pick 4 to the Jets. So to get him here at 7, I think for the Giants is a good win. You're leaving this top 10 with a foundation piece on your offensive line and a potentially shutdown corner. All right, if we move on to pick 8, we have the Atlanta Falcons. I had just put out a video on my YouTube channel talking about why the Falcons shouldn't draft a quarterback, and a lot of it was because they're not going to be ready to win this year. So just get a foundational piece and then go into next year's draft when they're probably picking in the top 3 and get a guy like Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud or DJ Uiagalelei or whoever else pops up. I think next year's going to be a pretty good quarterback class. Now, that being said, I have him taking Malik Willis right here. And I think he's a player. Once again, they're not in a position to compete right away. So take a shot. And I'm not as high on Malik Willis as a lot of other people, but I understand the fact that look at the past drafts. Teams have played it safe, going with Baker Mayfield number one, going with whoever number one. Take shots in the first round. Get the guys with the most ceiling. And I think that's what we're forgetting about. Guys like Justin Herbert, guys like Josh Allen. And those are the guys, some of these projects, even Lamar Jackson, are the ones that have hit. And everyone raves about Malik Willis's character. Everyone raves about his potential. Bet on that potential. Bet on your coaching staff that you can develop him. And I think that's what the Falcons do here. I actually think Malik Willis was probably going to be the first quarterback taken, but I think it's going to be someone trading up. Who that may be, the Steelers absolutely love him, but that's a huge jump from 20. Would another team move up? Will the Falcons move up? Who knows? But in this situation, I thought Malik Willis made a lot of sense. All right, number 9, the Seahawks. I have them going a couple of different ways. I could see them going pass rusher, but I ended up settling with Charles Cross, the Mississippi State left tackle. Here's a guy who I think is a premier pass protector. Still has some work to do as a run blocker, but if he's dropping and protecting your quarterback in the pass game, I think he's a tremendous asset. The Seahawks are probably losing Dwayne Brown, so they could use a new left tackle, and I think Cross is a guy that can kind of fit with what they want to do and just be a good fit there. All right, that leads us to the 10th pick in the New York Jets, and I have him taking pass rusher number 4 with Trayvon Walker, so we could go cornerback here. I think Kyle Hamilton at safety is a possibility as well. But we got to think, once again, they drafted a quarterback last year in Zach Wilson, and they need to build around him. And I thought under the previous regimes with the Jets, they did an awful job of surrounding Sam Darnold with talent. And he had no receivers to throw to. So when Zach Wilson came, he had Denzel Mims, who was coming off an injury. They signed Corey Davis. They drafted Elijah Moore. But they still need to give Zach Wilson some weapons. And that's why I really like Garrett Wilson as this pick. I think Garrett Wilson is the best receiver in this class. I think he gives me – I don't think this is the best comp, but I remember when I watched him, I got a lot of Stephon Diggs vibes just because he's not the biggest receiver, but he can go up and, he's got a good catching radius. He's got good speed. He can win at all 3 levels. And so I think the Jets are a team that just need to add more weapons. They invested in the offensive line in free agency. And I just think this is a good move to just get your young quarterback some weapons around him. All right, so that's the top 10. Quick review. Jaguars taking Evan Neal. Lions taking Aiden Hutchinson. Houston taking Kayvon Thibodeau. The Jets taking Trayvon Walker. The Giants taking Ikem Ekwonu. The Panthers taking Kenny Pickett. The Giants taking Ahmed Sauce Gardner. The Falcons taking Malik Willis. The Seahawks taking Charles Cross. And the Jets taking Garrett Wilson. So that leads us to the Washington Commanders. And there's a lot that they could do here. Receiver could be an option. There's mention that they really like the 2 Ohio State receivers, so Chris Olave is still available. They could go a number of different directions, but I'm looking here, and Kyle Hamilton is still available. The number 2 rated, he's like my 3rd rated player in this draft. I know he's kind of gotten hammered for not running a high 40 time at his pro day, but he did run a 4.59 at the combine. So I don't know why everyone's freaking out about that. His pro day time, because the NFL teams are just going to go off of what they have anyway, and a lot of that's the combine. So here's a guy that's, I think, a foundation piece at safety. I think he's going to potentially fall out of the first round because of he's a safety, and safeties tend to fall. Derwin James was viewed as one of the best players in the draft a few years ago, and he fell to pick, 16? So I think Kyle Hamilton is going to be a guy that could fall out of the top 10. I think Washington would love to have him. They have Cam Curl. They have a couple other guys at safety that are solid pieces, but just not elite players. And Kyle Hamilton would give Ron Rivera and this Commanders defense, which is pretty good, a solid foundational playmaker back in that secondary. All right, as we move on to the Vikings at pick 12, it's cliche to give them a cornerback because that's what Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman tended to do over the last several years, is continue to just cornerback after cornerback after cornerback, Jeff Gladney, Xavier Rhodes, Mike Hughes, so on and so forth. And so now that Spielman and Zimmer are gone, you think, oh, they're going to go in a different direction. But no matter how many picks they invest in that position, they still have a need. And that's where I think they end up going. And we're sitting here with Derek Stingley and Trent McDuffie available. And Stingley was a guy that, coming into this year, everyone thought was going to be a top 3 pick, top 5 pick, one of the best cornerbacks that come out. We hear about his freshman year just battling it out with Jamar Chase. But he's struggled with injuries, hasn't played to that same level as we saw his freshman year. And I think that's going to cause him to slide a little bit. And that's why I think the Vikings are going with Trent McDuffie. Trent McDuffie is my second-rated corner in this draft. I love him as a prospect. He's explosive. He's quick twitch. He's got good fluidity in his hips. He's a guy that I think can play inside and out. And in the Vikings defense, they're going to run that Vic Fangio style 3-4. I think he's going to be a perfect fit within that. And that's why I think the Vikings take him there. All right, as we move on to pick 13, it goes back to the Houston Texans. This is the pick they got in the Deshaun Watson trade from the Cleveland Browns. And I have them going pass rusher early. And so when I think about who they could take here, when I think about their third overall pick, I think either pass rusher. I think Kyle Hamilton at safety is a possibility. I thought offensive line is a possibility, and that's where I end up going here. And so, there's talk of Laremy Tunsil being traded. There's talk of, whatever. They just need offensive line help, and I think a guy that the NFL absolutely loves, he's a good fit with what they want to do, is Trevor Penning from Northern Iowa. So that's who I have being the pick there. Physical, aggressive. He wants to bury you in the ground. And he is somebody that I think is going to be their pick. It could very well be their pick. They could put him at right tackle. If they end up moving Laremy Tunsil, they could slide him over to left tackle where he played in college. And I think he's just a physical, huge man that moves well and is going to have a nice, solid NFL career. Now, as we move on to pick 14, the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens always tend to have good players fall in their lap. I think a guy like Jordan Davis could be a possibility here. He's not a true 3-4 run stuffer. He's more of a up-the-field type player. So I don't know about that. Jermaine Johnson's mocked here quite a bit, but I'm not a big fan of him in a 3-4. And I sit here and I look, and Derek Stingley is still available with this pick. And I think to the Ravens, they've got probably one of the best cultures in the NFL. They've got strong leaders. And I think a guy like Derek Stingley, if he's available to them, is a strong possibility that he's their pick because he's an all-world talent. He is legit a top 3 player in this draft if he's going. And so I think the Ravens could look at this and say, hey, we've got a chance to get an elite player here at pick 14. Yes, he's maybe got some concerns, some red flags, but we feel as an organization that we can get the most out of him, and that's why I think they end up picking him there. All right, as we get into picks 15 and 16, it is the Philadelphia Eagles. These are the picks that they got from Miami and from the Colts. And so I'm going to do both of these together. I think they could go a lot of different directions, but I do think they are going to take an offensive and defensive lineman within these, picks 15, 16, and 19. So pick 15, I start off the bat. I have them taking a pass rusher, and I have them going with Jermaine Johnson from Florida. Jermaine Johnson transferred to Florida State this past year and really exploded. And I think a big reason for that is he was playing in a 4-3 defense. I didn't know 3-4, 4-3. It's all relative because everyone's in a sub package. But I think him playing outside, hand in the ground, is where he's best suited. And so going to Philadelphia, I think, is a good fit for him. I mentioned earlier with the Ravens, being more of a stand-up type pass rusher, I don't think suits him very well. So I like him in Philadelphia. With that 16th pick, I have him going receiver. I know they've drafted receiver in the first round the last 3 drafts, but they still need help. And I look at the guy that I like for them, and that's Drake London from USC. It gives them something different. They've got a speed slot guy in a couple years ago from TCU. They got Devontae Smith last year from Alabama. So they've got the do-it-all guy in Devontae Smith. They got Jalen Reagor in the slot, and now you get a big physical guy. And Howie Roseman's swung and missed on a couple of receivers. He got one right last year with Devontae Smith. But he's missed on a few bigger guys, but you can see that they want those big guys, and I think Drake London's a guy that would give him a nice compliment. It would give Jalen Hurts a big target on the outside to throw the ball up to. He's not the most accurate. He doesn't have the best arm, so therefore you need a guy like Drake London, who's a 6'5" basketball player outside playing receiver, who would be able to go and get those jump balls, work down the field, and I think with 3 first-round picks, they can use one as a luxury, and that's why I think receiver is a strong possibility here. All right, moving on to 17, we have the Los Angeles Chargers. Here's a team that they underachieved on defense with a strong defensive guru that they hired as their head coach. They struggled on defense, especially against the run. Now they've added Khalil Mack, they've added J.C. Jackson, so they've added some pieces to this defense, but I don't think they're done. And that's why I think a player like Jordan Davis from Georgia would be a strong fit here with the Chargers, and they can use him as there's this misconception out here that Jordan Davis is, for some, I think most draft analysts know this, but a lot of people see Jordan Davis and they see 6'6", 335 pounds, and they think he's a run-stuffing defensive tackle. And he's much more than that. He's more of an up-the-field player, so I think he'd fit well within the Chargers' defense. It is a 3-4. He probably will still play nose tackle, but I think Staley will use him in the same mold that he used Aaron Donald, because Aaron Donald played nose tackle for Staley with the Rams, and he wasn't sitting there two-gapping and taking on blocks. He was disrupting, and so that's what I think Jordan Davis is, and I think he'd be a good fit for them there. All right, this takes us to the New Orleans Saints, who once again could go a couple different directions. It could go offensive tackle to replace Terron Armstead, who left in free agency. They could continue to get a receiver to help out Jameis Winston. They could go a lot of different directions. But I look at this team and I say, who's their quarterback long term? And Jameis Winston, I thought, played well for them last year, but he is not a long-term solution for them. They've already moved Taysom Hill to the tight end, kind of do-it-all offensive player mold. So I think quarterback right here is a strong possibility, and I like Matt Corral from Mississippi in this situation, just because I think he's still got some room to improve as a prospect. And he doesn't have to come in and start day one. They have Jameis Winston, so Corral can kind of come in, learn the NFL offense, learn Pete Carmichael's scheme, and slowly work his way in. And there's a good chance that Jameis Winston could get hurt because he's gotten hurt last year, and he's coming back from that ACL injury. So I think a guy like Matt Corral could eventually take over throughout the season, and then be the Saints starter for the next however many years. All right, as we move on to 19, we move back to the Philadelphia Eagles. And if you remember, I mentioned that I felt with these 3 picks that they have in the teens, they were going to go in offensive and defensive line position. And so I already had them taking Jermaine Johnson with that 15th pick. So that tipped my hat a little bit and have them going offensive line. But I have them going with Tyler Linderbaum from Iowa. Jason Kelce is a player that's been tremendous for them, but he is nearing the end of his career, and the Eagles are all about just adding. They love having depth on their offensive line, drafting players to take over after a year, and so that's how I see with Tyler Linderbaum. I know they have Landon Dickerson, who they drafted last year, who was a college center. I think he's going to stay at guard, where he's having a ton of success. And then you bring in Tyler Linderbaum, who maybe is that swing guy in the interior his first year before eventually taking over for Jason Kelce in a couple years. All right, as we wrap out the top 20, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it's been no secret that the Pittsburgh Steelers love Malik Willis, and they want to draft him, and they want to build their offense similar to that of the Baltimore Ravens, and bringing Malik Willis along that way, where they're utilizing his athleticism and letting him develop his passing skills as he gets acclimated and as a runner. Now, obviously, Malik Willis is gone in this scenario. I had him going 8 to the Atlanta Falcons. So what did the Steelers do? Do they just take an offensive player and roll out there with Mitchell Trubisky? I don't think so. And so a quarterback that is getting a lot of attention, I'm not as high on him as a lot of people, but that's Desmond Ridder. And Desmond Ridder is a guy that a lot of people really like. He's getting mocked in the first round, especially to the Lions. For people that don't have the Lions taking Malik Willis number 2. And Ritter's a good athlete. He ran in the 4.6, the low 4.6s at the combine. He's led Cincinnati's attack. He shredded the AAC with Cincinnati. He struggled against Alabama, but let's be honest, everyone struggles against Alabama. And I look at him and I say, hey, a lot of people just rave about his leadership and his ability to command an offense. And we look at his athleticism, and I say, hey, the Steelers miss out on Malik Willis. I think Desmond Ridder is a guy that they're comfortable falling back into and can do a lot of the things that they wanted. They're going to be a run-heavy team that plays good defense. And so I think Desmond Ridder is a guy that can provide them that leadership and give them a lot of that run game aspect as well. All right, as we move into the 20s, we have the New England Patriots. A guy that I really like to them, and I don't know, Patriots are always so hard to accurately mock, and I think I have them taking Devin Lloyd, the linebacker from Utah. A lot of people have him going in the top 10, the top 15. I'm just not big on linebackers going that early, and I don't see him as being that generational, that type of guy that fits there. But I look at the Patriots and their versatility that they want out of their players, because they don't have a true scheme. One week they might run 3-4 concepts. The next week they're in a 4-3 concept. And I think Devin Lloyd's a guy that can do multiple things. He can rush off the edge. He can be a blitzer. He can drop into coverage. He can run and chase. He can do a lot of things pretty well, really good. And so I think the Patriots are a team that would love that versatility. They need to add some athleticism to their linebacker spot. So it just makes perfect sense to me. All right, we move on to pick 22, and that's the Green Bay Packers. And since they traded away Davante Adams, you know that they have to attack the wide receiver position in this draft because they haven't added anybody in free agency, and so they're really going in with Allen Lazard and Amari Rodgers and a handful, Randall Cobb, so they need to attack this position. And a lot of people have linked them to Chris Olave, and I get it, but they need that number one guy. They don't need another speed guy. And so that's why I think a guy like Treylon Burks from Arkansas is a perfect fit for what they want to do. He's not Davante Adams, but Treylon Burks, the biggest comp that a lot of people were giving him was A.J. Brown, who's done tremendous with the Tennessee Titans. And Treylon Burks, a lot of people kind of were out on him after he didn't run the fastest time at the combine. But whenever I watched him play in the SEC, he looked fast. He was winning down the field. And he's a physical guy at the catch point. And I just think he's a perfect fit for what the Packers offense does. And he's a perfect fit for what they need at that position. So I think he's going to go higher than people expect. I think a lot of people are dropping him to the very bottom of the first round and potentially out of it. I think he's perfect for what the Packers want. All right, as we move on to pick 23, we have the Arizona Cardinals. I have them going cornerback here, and I have them going to the state of Washington to get Kyler Gordon. Kyler Gordon's, so we have two Washington corners going in this draft. I had Trent McDuffie going to the Vikings at 12, and now Kyler Gordon going here to pick 23 to the Arizona Cardinals. Another athletic corner that can stick in and out with receivers in and out of the breaks. The Cardinals continue to need to add and build up that defense, and so I think Kyler Gordon's a good fit there. Pick 24, I have the Cowboys taking George Karlaftis from Purdue. They lost out on Randy Gregory in free agency. They thought they had him re-signed. Demarcus Robinson's aging. They have Micah Parsons, who's probably one of the best edge rushers in the NFL, but they don't want to rely on him solely, so I think they need to continue to add additional edge rushers, and that's why I think Karlaftis is a guy at pick 24 is pretty good value. So I think they would jump at that opportunity. All right, pick 25, we have the Buffalo Bills. I have them taking an offensive lineman. I think running back's a possibility. There's a lot of speculation and rumor that Breece Hall is going to go in the late first round, and a team like the Bills would be a good fit for him. I just don't see that happening at this point, and I think the Bills have lost some offensive line pieces and can really look to improve in the interior, and that's why I think a guy like Kenyon Green from Texas A&M is a good fit. I mean, here's a guy that I think is one of the best guards in this class. He's got tackle versatility. I think moving him inside to guard, he'd be a tremendous fit and really thrive at that position. All right, pick 26 is the Tennessee Titans. I have them taking Jameson Williams. If we know anything about John Robinson, he loves to take chances, and he wants to hit it big and get a home run with his first-round picks. So we've seen the last couple of years he's taken guys with injury concerns that were considered maybe top 10 prospects. Jeffrey Simmons was one. Last year, they took the cornerback out of Virginia Tech who had a back issue and didn't play. They took a flyer on the offensive tackle out of Georgia a couple years ago. And so I think the reason why Jameson Williams fits is they need that second receiver. Yes, they got Robert Woods. Yes, they got A.J. Brown, but they need one more. Get that speed element in Jameson Williams. And there's a lot of talk that if Jameson Williams didn't get hurt in the national championship game, he was going to be a top 10 pick. So everything here leads to me thinking Jameson Williams as that pick right there. All right, pick 27, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I have them going offensive line also, and I have them taking Zion Johnson, the guard from Boston College. They lost Ali Marpet to retirement. They got Tom Brady back, and so they're looking to win right away. So they need a plug-and-play guy on the inside to keep Tom Brady clean. And so that's why I like Zion Johnson there. Speaking of Devontae's, pick 28, the Green Bay Packers. I have them taking Devontae Wyatt, the defensive tackle from Georgia, a true interior pass rusher. The Packers have some pieces along that defensive line. Kenny Clark's a stud. They signed Jaron Reed to be a rotational run stuffer, but they could use more interior pass rushers to go with Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith on the outside, and so that's why I like Devontae Wyatt there. Pick 29 is the Chiefs' first round pick, and I think they look to find a receiver to replace Tyreek Hill, and Chris Olave is still available. I think he probably goes earlier, but I just, in this scenario, I had him still available, and I think the Chiefs are going to trade up to get him, and he just fits perfectly in Andy Reid's offense. Speed, good route runner. I think, a guy that can work the field deep, and they just love to add speed. And I think Olave's, him and Garrett Wilson, the teammates from Ohio State, are the two best receivers in this class. So if the Chiefs can get Olave or potentially Jameis Williams, I think they'd be pretty ecstatic. We now have the Chiefs' second first-round pick, and I think they go defense here. And I think they take a gamble on an edge rusher in Boya Mafe from Minnesota. I think David Ojabo is a possibility, but with his Achilles injury, he's probably going to push him to the second round. I think the Chiefs want to add. They know that they're going to be playing with leads. They're going to be playing in shootouts, so they need pass rushers. And Mafe is a guy that I think they'll be willing to take a risk on because he is has a lot of potential. All right, last couple picks. We have the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, this was boilerplate to give them an offensive lineman. However, they invested in that position quite a bit in free agency, so I don't think it's a lock to happen. I know a lot of people mock linebackers, but they're pretty set there. So I think they go cornerback, and I see them going Andrew Booth out of Clemson. And I know he just got reported that he had hernia surgery, but he's going to be ready for training camp, so I don't think that's going to affect his draft stock. I think here's a guy that's a big, physical, good athlete that could play corner, and they need cornerback help. And I think, they love to draft guys from big schools, and that's why I think Booth would be a good fit there. And finally, pick 32, we have the Detroit Lions. I think they can go a lot of different directions, but linebacker has always been a need. And the Lions tend to reach on their second pick for a big need. But luckily, they don't need to reach here because you have Nakobe Dean still available. He is my top-rated linebacker in this draft. He's maybe a little undersized, but he can do it all. He can go sideline to sideline. He can rush. He can play in coverage. And I think the way he plays the game, once again, fits what Dan Campbell wants out of this defense. And so that's why I think he's a tremendous fit for what they want to do here. All right, so if we look at the draft, here we go. Here is my draft. I hope you guys enjoyed my latest NFL mock draft a month out before the season. A lot of good players off the board. I don't think this draft got a lot of elite talent, but I think it's going to be a fun draft. It's going to be kind of wild. It's already been a wild offseason, and I think the draft is going to be the same. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure you follow. You hit that subscribe button, and then also make sure you follow me on social media, draft_Brian. Thanks for watching. Until next time.